There is a wild fruit falling onto the ground across half of America right now that tastes like caramel and butterscotch and a soft ripe date all mixed together. It grows for free. It hangs on the bare branches like orange ornaments in the fall, and almost nobody eats it. Not because it is rare, it is everywhere, and not because it tastes bad. It is one of the sweetest things that grows on this continent. Nobody eats it for one strange reason. Almost everyone who has ever tried it wrong. And that single mistake gave one of America's finest fruits a reputation it never deserved. You have almost certainly walked right past this tree and maybe even been tricked by it as a child. And in the next few minutes you will learn the one simple secret that turns this so-called worthless fruit into candy, and why you can find it for free growing near you this very autumn. Because this is not a story about a fruit that failed. It is a story about a fruit that was misunderstood and quietly written off, while the version you buy in the store is a shadow of the real thing. Stay with me, because by the end you will want to go find one yourself. The fruit is the American persimmon, and to understand it you first have to understand the cruel little trick it plays on everyone who meets it. Picture the tree in October. The leaves have fallen, and the bare branches are covered in round, glowing orange fruits, hanging there looking absolutely perfect, beautiful, ripe, begging to be eaten. So a person reaches up, picks one of those gorgeous orange globes off the branch, and takes a big, confident bite, and their whole world turns inside out. Because an unripe persimmon is not merely sour, it is one of the most astringent things you can put in your mouth. It is loaded with tannins, the same puckering compounds you find in strong tea and red wine and raw acorns, and in an unripe persimmon they are off the charts. It does not just taste bad, it makes the entire inside of your mouth go dry and fuzzy and tight, like it is coated in chalk. Your lips pucker, your eyes squint, every instinct screams to spit it out. The early explorers described it perfectly. One wrote that an unripe persimmon would, and I quote, draw a man's mouth awry with much torment. And that right there is the whole tragedy of this fruit, because that person gagging on a bite of chalk in regret does exactly what you would expect. They decide once and for all that persimmons are horrible. They never touch one again. They warn their friends. And a fruit that could have been dessert becomes, in their mind, a nasty little trap on a tree. But they made one mistake, and it is the only mistake that matters. They ate it off the branch. Here is the secret that changes everything. An American persimmon that looks perfectly ripe, hanging up on the tree, is very often not ripe at all. That gorgeous orange color is a lie. The fruit is not truly ready until it is so soft, so completely mushily jelly soft that it can barely hold itself together, and it lets go of the branch and drops to the ground on its own. So the old-timers knew a rule, and it is the entire key to this fruit. If you want persimmons, you do not look up into the tree, you look down, on the ground, underneath it. The ripe ones fall. And when you find those soft, wrinkled, almost overripe fruits lying in the grass, the ones that look like they are past their best, that is when the magic has happened. Because as the fruit ripens fully, all those harsh puckering tannins quietly disappear. The astringency vanishes completely, and what is left behind is astonishing. The flesh turns to a silky, soft, almost jelly-like pulp, and the flavor becomes rich and deeply sweet, tasting of caramel, of butterscotch, of brown sugar and dates. That same explorer who cursed the unripe fruit said that when it is ripe, it is as delicious as an apricot. One bite of a properly ripe American persimmon, and you understand instantly why native peoples across the eastern woodlands treasured this fruit for centuries, drying it like dates and baking it into breads and puddings, the exact same fruit. From torment to candy, the only thing that changed was patience. Now, while we are here, let me kill the one piece of bad advice that ruins this fruit for more people than anything else. You have probably heard that persimmons are not ready until after the first frost, that a good freeze is what makes them sweet. It is one of the most repeated bits of folk wisdom about this tree, and it is wrong. It is not the frost that takes away the bitterness. It is ripeness, plain and simple. It just so happens that persimmons finish ripening late in the fall, around the same time the first frosts arrive, so people connected the two and assumed the cold did the work, but it does not. In fact, a hard freeze can actually damage good fruit still hanging on the tree and turn it to mush in a bad way. So do not wait around for a frost, just wait for soft. Soft is the only signal that matters. So now we arrive at the real question. If this fruit is free and native and tastes like caramel when you know the simple trick, then why on earth is it not in every grocery store in the country? Why have most Americans never even tasted the persimmon that grows in their own backyard? And the answer is the honest reason so many of our best wild foods disappeared. It comes down to that soft, jelly-like ripeness, the very thing that makes it so delicious. Think about what a perfectly ripe American persimmon actually is. It is a small, thin-skinned bag of sweet pulp, so soft it falls apart in your hand. Now try to imagine shipping that. Try to imagine packing it in a crate, loading it on a truck, driving it across the country, and stacking it on a shelf under bright lights for a week. It is impossible. A truly ripe persimmon would be a puddle before it ever left the state. It bruises if you look at it. It cannot be shipped, it cannot be stored, and it cannot sit on a shelf. And a fruit that cannot do those things is a fruit the grocery system simply cannot sell. So the modern food business did what it always does. It found a version it could sell instead. The persimmon you do see in stores is almost always the Asian persimmon, a different fruit, bred to be big and firm and shippable, one you can eat while it is still crisp like an apple. It is fine, but it is not this. It is not the soft, wild, caramel-sweet native fruit that drops for free in American woods every fall. That one got left behind, not because it lost some contest of flavor, but because it was too tender and too perishable to put a price tag on. And so a fruit that fed this land for thousands of years, a fruit the very first colonists wrote home about, quietly slipped out of the American diet. Not because it failed us, because it could not survive a supermarket. And that, when you strip it down, is a pattern worth remembering. The very thing that makes a wild food special, its tenderness, its ripeness, its life, is often the exact thing that makes it impossible to sell. So the real treasures get left in the woods and forgotten while we buy the tougher, blander, shippable version and never know what we missed. The good news is that this fruit never went anywhere. It is still out there, dropping onto the ground across most of the eastern half of the country, from Connecticut down to Florida and west toward Texas, free for anyone who knows the secret. And you can even plant one in your own yard. It is a tough, hardy, low-maintenance native tree that will drop sweet fruit for you every fall for decades. So here is how you actually enjoy it. In autumn, find a persimmon tree and do not touch the fruit still hanging firm on the branch. Look on the ground beneath it, or gently shake a branch and take only the fruit that falls easily and is completely soft and wrinkled to the touch. Squeeze out that silky pulp and eat it fresh with a spoon-like pudding, or use it the way generations of Americans did, baked into persimmon bread, cookies, and the old famous persimmon pudding. Two honest cautions, and they matter. First, this fruit teaches its own lesson the hard way, so learn it the easy way instead. Only ever eat persimmons that are fully, mushily ripe and soft. An unripe one will not seriously harm you, but it will pucker your mouth miserably and can upset your stomach. So when in doubt, wait. Soft and squishy, always. And second, as with any wild plant, be sure you have correctly identified the tree and only gather from clean ground away from any area that may have been sprayed. So let's recap what we just dug up. A native fruit that hangs like orange ornaments and tastes like caramel and dates when it is ripe. A cruel little trick of astringency that fooled generations into thinking it was worthless, when the only secret was to wait for it to fall and go soft. A frost myth that sent people looking for the wrong signal entirely. And a fruit that vanished from our stores, not because it failed, but because it was simply too soft and too sweet to survive the trip. They told you the persimmon was a nasty trap on a tree. They never told you that. Ripe and fallen, it is one of the finest wild desserts in America, growing for free, right where you can find it. If this opened your eyes, do two things before you go. Subscribe, because every week we dig up another piece of the free abundance hiding in plain sight all around you. And take a walk this fall. Look down beneath the bare branches and taste for yourself the sweet fruit that America forgot. The candy was on the ground the whole time. Go and find